We're gonna go
And-
chainsaw. Yeah, because these are very actually, dude, is there even a single piece of dialogue in
Yes,
this
yes, there is. But
one?
but throughout like I want
Okay.
to
Wow.
half.
Yeah, there's like none. There's like none. I think in total, there's not even like
There's like
12 speech bubbles. I
okay,
don't even think there's
there's
12,
4
man.
pages of dialogue. There's 4 pages
1,
of dialogue.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Wow, dude, that's actually insane. That's actually insane. So there's
Yeah.
a total of that's 6, 10. There's literally 14 dialogue boxes within 19 pages. That's crazy, man. Wow. So
Another fight one. So like chapter 95, Chainsaw Man versus Control Devil. And I mean the action in this one is like, what the heck? It's
yeah, dude, this series just makes no sense because we go literally into the second page, and what's the first thing that happens? Denji pops back up, and Makima's head just gets lopped off.
but
And
then what somebody else's does, like a voodoo doll, like I didn't get hit, they got hit.
yeah, like I don't know, man. Just right there alone, it just speaks to the the what the hell nature of this series. Where on any chapter, on any given day, you don't have a friggin' clue what's about to go down. So
No, you don't. And it's insane because they're both trading blows, like back to back. Where like
yeah,
he slices her up, then he hits him, and he's like, it's just. Then she gets her head cut off, and it's just insane, man.
well, it's very similar to Jujutsu, funnily
It
enough, where
really is. It
it's
really
just
is.
this back and forth of here's a
Chainsaw
hit,
Man,
here's like, oh my god,
like
like the head, there's some arm.
but Denji also could like
Like at
regenerate
least he's
too.
not just and dead, and then a chainsaw's foot on page half, then she's just back together and like.
So going back to like the whole fight, they're just going back and forth, like hitting each other. But one thing I just want to mention throughout this chapter, I think what I find, for lack of a better, because art, I think pages 12 and 13. I'm just gonna say it's just like beautiful Renaissance. Like it's just her pulling out his like heart, which I don't think we ever seen, and that makes sense why it looks like that, because this is like dog, and with the like little rev on it, or like the pull
cord, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, this honestly reminds me of a like Da Vinci's or Michelangelo's Renaissance painting, obviously in a more gruesome way, and horrific.
Extremely horrific. If they were like, on the worst possible like LSD trip of all time, and we're like, hey, those angels I painted on the 16th chapel, what if they were demons ripping each other's hearts out? What would that look like?
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of. I'm gonna try to do a quick search, but it's like when Mary's holding Jesus, or I think it's Mary, and it's like Jesus kind of like, not flop, but like he's like in his arms. So very very similar, and I'm thinking I want to know if it's like intentional, and obviously it's very different, right?
Oh, well, yeah, okay. See the connection at first, in all honesty, but like,
I mean, it's probably just a little bit. I mean, obviously it's not like she's married.
But I get you, because there's this weird, like, it's kind of weird, right? Because it's almost like she's holding him to be like, oh, it's gonna be okay, but there's this cold, like, killer intent in her eyes. There's like this no emotion, and then her heart's in his hand, and you're like,
I just feel like the positioning is very similar to that art.
That's possible. Depending on which one you're talking about, it's definitely possible.
Yeah, and obviously it's very opposite of that, where like Jesus, well, I don't know, Jesus being a savior, and I guess people will think Denji's a savior, but this is the complete opposite of like, I mean,
not today.
Yeah, and he has his heart in his hand, which is like, I guess every guy wants that, right? But not literally. But I do find this piece of like this spread page is like obviously gruesome, but very beautiful at the same time. With all the crosses in the background, with like the endless vast, like you don't even see nothing in the sky, man. Not even a cloud.
No, yeah, it's just like there's nothing else but this kind of thing. I getcha.
Basically death. You know what I mean? Because like all the dead, bodies are under there. So I really like, one thing I really enjoyed in this chapter was like this panel for sure. But I guess going to the Oni for oh, actually I have a question for you. What do you think about the fight that we saw. At least, what do you think about the fight we saw compared to this one? Compare this fight to the other fights that we saw this week with Kaiju and with Jinjutsu.
That's a pretty good question. So I would say out of the three, I think that I'm saying too many here. Sorry. So out of the three, I think Juju would probably actually be my favorite. That may slightly just be a bias because I'm on the hype train right now because I've just fallen in love with that series. The reason I say that is, and I think it just comes back to this main idea of how Akutami just choreographs everything really, really well.
More Kung is more
Yeah,
like martial
as
arts.
opposed to, here there's some stuff going on where, I'd argue this is probably a close second in terms of choreography, but I don't know, man. Whenever limbs are coming off and stuff like that and growing back,
It's
it
just,
always,
yeah.
I don't know that.
You're not a fan of it?
Not really, like not in I guess a sense like this, if you will, if that makes sense, because if you're
low, I guess.
yeah, there's not like, but if you work it into the story properly, it makes sense. Like, her just cutting her hand or shooting her hand and being like, "Here's some blood. You're coming back to life, and now I'm just going to cut your limbs off again." I'm just kind of like, okay, kind of whatever, right? Or, he just had his heart ripped out, but I mean, he had his heart ripped out before and he kicked it down from space and then just respawned on his heart. Like, I don't understand what equals death in this world. I don't understand like anything of that nature. If I had to make a comparison to a series where there's not really repercussions in the fights, it's World Trigger. Because in World Trigger, you can lose limbs in a fight, but it doesn't matter because it's your Treon body. And, that's okay because it works within the scope of the world and there's other ways to have repercussions. But in this, it's like, okay, so his heart got ripped out. Whatever. I saw that like 5 chapters ago when he was fighting her as Chainsaw Man and nothing happened. So, why is it impactful now? And I don't know, man. It just takes.
Well, I think it's more like I don't think we ever saw his heart this way. We're like
it's Puchita or whatever.
Yeah.
And like actually connected to him. Yeah, I guess.
And going backing off what you said, and that was in his chainsaw form. I think that was like the most like in his most craziest wild form. You know what I mean?
That was the epitome of Chainsaw Man at that point.
Yeah, that was like his full power, so to speak. If you want to, if we're speaking quote unquote power in this world, right? Because even she says that she's you aren't Chainsaw Man after all. You know what I mean? So, and like she talks to him even more. Where like she wants to make him depressed again. Like really, it's like, oh man, this girl.
So here's an interesting thing. Do you think she can't kill Chainsaw Man? But here's what I don't understand.
Well, she wants to control him.
Well, yeah, I guess that's it, right? If she doesn't want to kill Chainsaw Man,
she wants to make the perfect world. That's why
she also wants Chainsaw Man to kill her, right? So that doesn't even make sense. I'm very confused. This villain makes no sense.
Well, because so the way I break it, that's why you should probably like reread some of the chat. Well, it's kind of funny. I wonder how rereading some of the chapters will like kind of like okay, like you could kind of see like the undertone, like okay, you can see her true motive. Well, I guess she wants to Chainsaw Man to eat her because that way, not that she disappears, because her power she can control anybody. She controls the Gun Devil and like so many others. So, that way she could like control Chainsaw Man like through that. Because you see the other devils that she, now has. So I am curious how this is going to end. I mean, now she has her heart. I mean, she has his heart. So, or at least, I mean, we assume it's his heart, right? But we don't know what she's going to do with that. Going back to like the last 2 pages, right? He's very much I mean, he has guts everywhere, and it reminds me of a very what do you call this, religious, like I mean, I'm not saying he's like dying on the cross because obviously he has no arms, it would seem, but just that position reminds me of it.
I get you. Dude, I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to kind of process this again as we're going over, get some better insight. But to be honest, I feel like I can't, and I know that sounds really weird.
But that's understandable because like this whole series is like, what is every time we review it's like what is going on? But
right?
but I also love it. And going back to like when there's like no repercussions to like obviously people are losing limbs and stuff like that, and Denji seems to be inherently immortal. But he's still. I do agree where like sometimes that doesn't make an interesting character. But you could look at Deadpool where like I mean some people probably doesn't like him, right? But like he's still aside from him being unkillable, he's still an enjoyable character because the way he talks or the way he carries himself or the way he interacts with the characters. And I feel the same way with Denji where like yeah he's immortal and like obviously there are stronger beings stronger than him where like they're probably also immortal as well, but I still enjoy Denji because he's like a lovable pseudo loser, you know what I mean?
I get you.
So
The funny thing is I find is she kind of sums up this whole series where on page 16 Makima says every action he takes should be chaotic,
yeah,
and she's referring to Chainsaw Man obviously, but it encapsulates the series as a whole where it really is just on a chapter to chapter basis. It's just chaos. It just really truly is.
that is true. That yeah, definitely. I guess because it being another like short action chapter, how do you think the next? I mean, we don't know.
I don't know, man. Right, like if I had to make I guess a kind of pivotal point for me for this particular chapter is it's honestly Makima pissed me off because I hate characters that it was unavoidable that you'd lose to my bare hands. You aren't Chainsaw Man after all. And then the next panel is like the 12 other fucking people that died instead of her. And I'm like, you won by your bare hands, my ass, woman. Like,
That's her power, man.
but that's not your like no like yes but no like you just sacrificed 12 other people and you're like yeah I beat him myself. That's like no that's like those army commanders who are like oh yes sir I did everything for this operation. Meanwhile you got the grunt over there who just lost an arm because he was the one who's actually making the sacrifice here. Like this bitch did like nothing, man. She just
that's the point. She controls, and by the way, she's not gonna die because she has a bunch of bodies. They're in a graveyard, so probably worst case scenario for Denji to even like set up a fight there.
why did he even oh my god.
Setting man, cool.
So many questions. So many questions.
Also, we've been to this graveyard before, so it's not like it is significant.
No, I know. It's just like that size sums up my feelings of this chapter. I don't know how to feel about it.
But just my one final thought of I mean I love this chapter. It was like just another chaotic fight where it's just like nonstop going back and forth. I just love the last panel you see of Makima where she's just like what's his name from The Simpsons, the teacher or the principal, and she just reminds me of like pathetic. Just
yeah, okay. The meme, yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Like okay. I get that vibe and I get that energy. So definitely, and honestly, it wasn't intentional, but just like that's exactly how she's looking at Denji right now.
You ain't shit, man. You ain't shit.
Yeah. But moving to the next one, which one you want to do?